Hello everyone, this is Serious Trivia. We have a little breaking news here today. So the developer blog update just dropped for July 2020 on the Total War website. I'll be including a link to this blog post in the comment section below. But basically what we have is a bunch of news regarding Creative Assembly's game pipeline down the line, given the events of this year and the delays they've been experiencing from the coronavirus, of course, and working from home. And first up, we have a Total War Saga Troy, which is launching on August 13th. And everyone, please remember, if you don't mind Epic Game Store and you want a free copy of the game to play, it will be available to grab for the first 24 hours. So we're just 2 weeks out from that. I don't have too much content or much to say about the game so far because I haven't yet received a preview copy. I'm sure it will come in about a week or so, and we'll be getting some preview content on the channel before the official launch of the game. And so far, we have seen some of the news coming out from other YouTubers or other previewers, as well as from the live streams that Total War has done. And it seems like the campaign experience itself is going to be very rich, and there's going to be a lot of things to do. So I'm quite looking forward to that game. And aside from the launch of Total War Troy, we also have this 2020 roadmap for Total War Troy. So the original Day 1 DLC, the Amazon DLC, has been pushed back to September. And instead of being a Day 1 paid DLC, it's actually free to grab for a limited amount of time whenever they announce the time period of the launch of this DLC. If you are a member of Total War Access, which is a free account you can grab with Total War. So definitely make sure you get that account ready and then grab this free DLC when it comes out in September. As far as I know about the Amazon DLC, the only info I know is that we're likely to see two Amazon factions, one playing out more as a standard faction, the other one playing out more like a horde faction from Warhammer, if those of you are familiar with the Warhammer franchise. Basically, you don't really tend to a lot of your settlements, and you're just this roaming horde of army that fights on the map. Now, aside from that, we see we're getting a lot of other content with the game. We're going to get full mod support. Now, the issue with this, also a complaint with Epic Gaming's service, is that they don't support mods on the platform itself. So the solution right now is to use the EGS mod support, which I'm sure for a lot of the old school gamers, you know, that used to be when you run mods. There was a day when Steam didn't, support mods back in those days, and you had to use Nexus or whatever program you use to basically modify the files yourself and be able to launch your own mods. We don't really play a lot of mods on the channel. I have been trying out a few for Total War 3 Kingdoms, but I tend to want to enjoy the base game as is, at least for a little while before adding to it. So not really concerning for me. In October, the game is going to get its Blood and Glory DLC. This is a very simple DLC that's with all the Total War games. You can think of it as an added cost. It usually costs around $2.99, but the whole purpose of this DLC is to add blood and execution animations to the game. And the reason why they don't include it in the base game is mainly because of ratings. Because if you have blood and gore in the base game, the rating of the original game is going to go up to mature audience, and this way they can keep it teen and then offer the option of you adding blood and gore to the game through a DLC. The Artemis free DLC content that's also coming October is interesting. I can only guess what it pertains because Artemis is included in one of the gods or goddesses you can pray to, and it's probably going to be focused on range combat, it's my guess. And you're probably going to get some added content into the base game. In November, you'll see a Troy multiplayer launch. It's kind of interesting that they're going to delay the multiplayer launch. I wonder if it has anything to do with the Epic platform. But multiplayer has always been a slightly minor thing for Total War games, except for Warhammer. I think Warhammer has quite a lively multiplayer community, but other than that, most games are played for the single player experience, and I definitely play them mainly for the single player experience. So it's nice to have multiplayer option available, but it's probably not going to pertain too much to me or the channel. Lastly, in winter, we have a few more DLC, Ajax and Diomedes. These are two great Greek heroes, probably the number 2 and number 4 fighters from the Greek side. and we're going to have them probably added as playable factions, which is exciting. I'm sure they're ready in the game, as in modeled, but they're just not playable at launch, and we'll probably get them added in for a DLC in the winter. And by winter, I'm assuming this is December, consider they used up all the month already, unless they want to bring the 2020 roadmap into 2021, but they used the word winter, so what do we know? And finally, we have Hephaestus. I can't say this, but this is the god of forging, and he is also one of the gods I think you can pray to in the game already, so I don't know what the DLC content will add. But since he is the god of forge, he makes all the weapons for the Greek gods. Maybe we'll see an influx of new armor, new weapon, new shield for the generals, or maybe more unit type. Similar to my best guess for Artemis is perhaps more bows and more range units for the Artemis DLC. So that's all the news we have for Total War Saga Troy. We're ramping up into the launch, so I'm sure you'll see tons of information about the game going forward. Next up, we have a bit of news about Total War Warhammer 2. Now, I made the decision to not do any Warhammer material on the channel, mainly because the game's been out for a while. I do play the game, I find it quite enjoyable as well, but I'm probably not going to do any Warhammer 2 content on the channel. I will consider doing Warhammer 3 once it comes out, but from the look of things, given the news that they're offering here, that the next DLC will be a Wood Elves DLC, which is lovely. You have a full Lord pack that they're considering to add extra content for. So I'm going to breeze through this. Basically, what I get from this is that Warhammer 3 is probably not going to come out anytime soon, but they have a list of things planned out. So if you're interested in Warhammer content, I'm sure you have other sources for that, as well as you can just visit the blog post to go through that. Because what we are really interested in is this news about Total War 3 Kingdoms. So first off, Nanmans are coming. In fact, they're lined up to be our very next DLC release. So this is not our very next 3 Kingdoms DLC release. This is our very next DLC release. And with the news that the Amazon DLC is being pushed back into September, I'm pretty sure we're going to see this DLC come after the launch of Troy. So in between August 13th and mid-September, I expect we will get the Nanman DLC come out, maybe late August, maybe early September is my best guess, and we'll probably have a 2-3 week run-up time to the DLC. Now, like the Troy Saga, our channel is still a little small, so I don't think we're going to get early access, but we'll get the game probably a week before launch, and we'll be able to release content whenever the final embargo drops. So I'm very excited to try the game out. And a clarification on what type of DLC Nanman will be. You see that so far we've been getting chapter packs, and I thought that was great. That was kind of the style they were going for, and that was the size of a good size DLC compared to, let's say, the original Yellow Turban Launch Day DLC, which just adds like a subculture plus 3 generals and a little bit thinned out subculture. You don't get diplomacy as the Yellow Turbans. But instead, we're not getting a subculture pack. We're not getting a separate campaign. We're getting what they're calling an expansion pack. Because I was kind of thinking that the best way to present the Nanman storyline from the Romance of the Three Kingdoms is you have a separate map that's more flushed out, focused on one region. Since the conflict is very isolated between just Meng Huo and Zhuge Liang, you can just have a separate storyline being played out. But it seems like they're getting more ambitious, and they're going to actually push for what's called an expansion pack here. And it's going to be the first one for 3K, meaning there's going to be more. And they say it's going to be a large one. So expect something on a scale bigger than chapter packs. We're not going to jump into a year, perhaps, to start the game at a different starting date. We're probably just going to get a huge map expansion, as the name suggests, so that we have more space flushed out for the Nanman subculture, and probably going to get changes to the south. And aside from just expanding the map, we're going to get something that we've been asking for since the beginning, and that's Gate Pass battles. And Gate Pass battles are a feature from Three Kingdom lore, as well as historical context. Basically, you have key geographic locations that are ideal defensive chokeholds. And from anyone's experience with any type of ancient warfare, siege weapons were not that advanced back in the days. And taking such a gate pass will take immense manpower. So it's nice to see some of these more famous gates like Tongguan, Hulaoguan, Sishuiguan being added into the game. And some of these pass have history that goes all the way back into the Warring State periods when these were first constructed. And then obviously you have famous mountain passes out in Shu, guarding the Hanzhong region. And additionally, aside from adding gates to the map, we'll also get new settlements added to the map to help make the core passes much more defensible. I don't know what the settlements will be added in. I think maybe this is part of the expansion in the south. Perhaps they could also decide to break up some of the counties and provide more names for some of the counties, because we're missing a lot of key cities on the map. Let's say in the future they want to move the time period past Chibi, and you have a famous battle arena out in the east in Hefei. But Hefei right now is completely missing from the game because it's part of Yangzhou. And Yangzhou, the name itself suggests the Yang province. So you have a province name used for a commandery name in the game, and then you're missing the cities as part of that commandery. So I hope they're going to address this as they add new settlements, maybe break up some current settlements so that you have more accurate placement. And they talk about this a bit later on. Another key thing they're doing for defensive setup is that they're going to make some impassable shallows around Chang'an to stop the Yellow River being used to quickly take it. So if they could just add little stops in the river like this that force you to disembark and fight a battle, or where you can put a land army on the river to force people to actually fight you to go through, this is actually a very clever way to deal with the current river highway system that's being run in the game. So holding these key shallow passes, which are not key defensive structure by the name of them, right? Impassable shallows doesn't sound like gate battle, right? It just sounds like you have a nice sandy beach, you have armies fighting each other on this beach, you have to have a superior army to hold it, but it wouldn't just be a naval delegate, which is totally fine with me, because naval battles, as we think about it, whether it's ship clashing with ship, landing on each other's ship to fight, or ramming ships, just didn't happen very much in China back in those days. Ships are mainly used for troop transports, and you landed to fight. If you're fighting a naval to naval combat, it's mainly using arrows to shoot at each other. You don't actually ram people, and you don't actually land on people's ship. You don't board them to fight. That's really not what the river fighting is about. So it's nice to see these new defensive terrains being added into the game. Lastly, they don't want to give too much away, but there's also going to be a standard free LC Lord of the Han being added into the game along with the DLC for those of you who are not going to purchase the DLC or are not going to purchase the DLC right away. And they're also adding a new option to stop character from dying in old age at the beginning of the campaign, and some UI changes that we think will make a big difference. So UI changes, no clue what that's going to be about, but UI changes just takes time to get used to, but they think it's a general improvement. I'm all for it. Not dying from old age is something I'm not interested in. There's a lot of mods for that, and I have opted out of all the mods. I feel it's fine to have your character die off, as long as they expand the roster of available unique characters, including some of the younger generation. Eventually we'll get there. As we get more future expansion packs and chapter packs, we're going to see younger generation of Three Kingdom generals to come up in the game, and we'll be able to use those generals as our older one die off, and I wouldn't feel too bad about it. If you make everyone unique, if you make everyone undying, then, it's not going to be very fun. No one's unique when everyone's unique. As for the free LC Lord of the Han, it's an interesting choice. I mean, we're focused on the south for this DLC, I'm assuming. So we have candidates that are Shi Xie and Liu Zhang from the Shu region. That's the top two I can think of. Of course, they can just do something out of the blue and pick someone from another region. I mean, Zhanglu in the Hanzhong region might work as well. Who knows? But they could surprise us, and I'm ready for surprises. But we know it's a Han free LC, so it's not going to be a Nanman free LC or Bandit free LC. It's going to be a Han subculture general that's going to be added into the game as a playable faction, assuming for the 190 start as well as whatever this expansion pack will entitle. It's probably not going to be a date jump, so it's going to be curious to see how they handle the Nanman conflict as well, since Meng Huo is rather young during that period at the beginning of 190. So with that said, they also addressed a few issues they're running into as they are updating the game. First, they said, plus there will be something added that you'll never forget. Really curious. I want to know what's added in the Nanman DLC that we'll never forget, but we'll wait for it. Maybe it's just elephants. Who knows? That's something that's expected. This feels like something that's unexpected. Who knows? Now, continue on. They say, having said that, there is a minor issue that might bother some of you, so we want to get it out ahead of it. Hulao Pass is sort of in the wrong place. We know, and we're sorry. These things happen. Hulao Pass is positioned north of Mount Song, and we have placed it on the 3K map as on Mount Song. So basically, short story here is that there's a lot of terrain features on the map and city locations on the map that are placed incorrectly compared to a real map. Let's say Hanzhong is also placed incorrectly, slightly too far west, making a lot of the passes into Shu a little bit different than they would be historically. In this case, Songshan, or Mount Song, quite a famous mountain in China. There's 5 famous peaks, and Songshan is probably the most important one of the 5. Songshan is also where you will find Shaolin Si, or the Shaolin Temple, which was not built yet. Buddhism is not big during the Han Dynasty, although it was already introduced. But basically, they're trying to stay consistent with their save files. They're pretty much putting the pass next to a mountain location, which might offer a bit of a hint to seeing how they're treating the passes. It just might be attached to key terrain features. So the reason why it's wrong is because they have the mountain in the wrong place, which is something they can't fix right away without causing too much bugs. And they don't want to risk the launch of the DLC by introducing a whole slew of bugs just to fix mountain locations on the internal save file. So what they're telling us is that they're going to try to fix this in a future update, and that future update is going to come as part of a huge map update that will come with a second expansion pack DLC that will focus on building out the north of the map. So this tells us we're going to see a second expansion pack, and that the Nanman expansion pack is not the only one, and that second one is going to be focused on the north. And given how this is focused on the south, talking about the Nanman subculture, which is what I believe they will treat it as, we're probably going to see an influx of northern subcultures. Maybe we'll see Korean added to the map. Maybe we'll see Xianbei, Wuheng, Xiongnu, all nomadic tribes from the north added to the map. That would be quite exciting. And they're probably going to use that opportunity to flush out some of the commandery setup and geographic mistakes in the map currently. So we'll wait for that. And given how I remember them saying that this expansion pack will be followed by a chapter pack, we're probably going to get another chapter pack in between these 2 expansion packs as well. So I expect this big second expansion pack to be coming later 2021, probably in the second half, and that be the kind of big DLC overhaul for 3K. And we're probably going to see a couple more chapter packs as well. There's going to be Guandu as a very good time frame to jump into, Chibi, as well as the real 3 kingdoms. So I expect at least 3 more. And that means we're probably going to get 3K content going into 2022 at the latest. And given how long Warhammer 2 has been pumping out content, I'm sure we're going to see a lot more than that. So lastly, we're left with this image, probably from the trailer. And we're probably going to see the trailer very soon. And this is Meng Huo with the feathers on his head, as he is commonly depicted in pop culture, even though historically I think he wore a standard armor. He wasn't this tribal chief. Historically, he was a pretty much gentry representative in the south, and he rallied the tribes behind him, not that he is a tribal king. But here, at least he's on a horse and not on an elephant, which would be too weird. I don't want to see actual general mounted on elephants. I don't mind elephant troops, because that plays into the flavor of things, but I don't want to see my generals all riding on top of elephants. That would make combat really weird. If you want a duel, do you dismount your elephant, or do you just run over the other guy with your elephant? Alright, so that's enough about 3 Kingdoms. Very excited for all the change. Can't wait for the DLC to arrive. And lastly, we have a little bit more news about Total War Elysium. We have done some content because I was part of the earlier closed beta, and I'm happy to say the game is very fun. I enjoy card games very much growing up. I have played Magic the Gathering, I have played Hearthstone, I have played Gwent, I have played some of the recent ones as well, but not as much as those. And this game has a different flavor than a lot of those, not only in the theme of the characters being a Total War IP group of characters and roster, but also the way the game is played combines a lot of interesting elements from those more famous and established card games. So a lot of fun. There has been an increase in closed beta participants, so the multiplayer is actually quite lively. I am actually thinking of uploading some games to the channel. So for those of you who are interested in card games, you can definitely check those out. And if you're not interested in card games, just ignore them. I'm sure we have tons of content that you don't care about on the channel. Just watch the ones you enjoy, and we'll try to make everything happen without interfering with each other. And as you can notice from the roster of generals, Agamemnon's being added to the game as the Greeks are coming. They're not currently in the game, but we're going to see them very soon, I'm guessing with the launch of Troy. So we're going to get a pretty flushed out roster, and it's been very fun to play it. So that's pretty much it for Elysium. And the future. The future is talking about the next major Total War title, right? The Saga title, the Elysium title are not major Total War titles. When we're talking about Total War major titles, we're talking about Warhammer 3, Medieval 3, Empire 2, or maybe some big new theme. And right now it seems like it's going to be hard for them to produce something like that, or at least keep it on pace to their previous schedule, given the state of the world and given the amount of content they're bringing us at the end of the year with all these separate projects, whether they are in Elysium, Troy, Three Kingdoms, Total War, or Warhammer. We're going to get a lot of things to play. So that's that. And finally, we just have a reminder to sign up for Total War Access so that you can get your free copy of Amazon DLC when it comes out in September. And lastly, they included one translation of Total War Three Kingdoms in Simplified Chinese, and that's the only translation they have. And I read this. It's pretty much the same news. There's just a little bit of tone changes. Here it says Nanman 很快将会到来, so it means very, very soon it will come. So it means we're going to see this very soon. And there's not much else that's too different. Let's see. They're calling it the same thing. Right, this also the line about how there's going to be something unforgettable added in the Nanman expansion pack awaiting everyone. ... Who know what that is? And they also talk about how Songshan is placed incorrectly, and there's such a high risk for rewriting that mountain location in case it breaks all the internal save files, and bug is still bug. And don't worry, we'll fix this in the future. On the next time when we update the campaign map, the second expansion pack, and then we'll focus on the area in the north. So that wraps up our quick news break here, just telling you guys what's going on in the world of Creative Assembly. Hope you guys enjoy this one, and hope you guys are hyped for the new Nanman DLC. That should get announced in a couple of weeks. So see you guys then. Bye!